Let's get ready for the story of Melania Hallonquist, when courage calls for hope. What happened to my client happened back in 2011 to 2013, and then 2015. This is my first ever documentary that I have put together wholesomely by myself. I have no fancy team, I have no media crew. Hello world, how is everybody doing today? So, my name is Charles Shane Sharp, and we are finally here at the moment that I have been anticipating and waiting to have transpire. Because what is about to happen is you guys are about to witness a film of a client of mine that I have had the privilege and the opportunity to tell her story through a video concept. And the story that you are about to hear and you're about to undergo is a story of challenges, of struggle, of trying to find hope, having courage, having faith, being optimistic, not knowing if you're gonna actually make it another day. And this story itself brought chills down my back so many times, listening to the same stuff over and over again about what happened to my client and what these doctors did to my client here in the state of Texas. Ultimately, she didn't get help in the state of Texas. She had to go all the way to Arizona to get help from a doctor. And she got help, but she also went through many struggles while being there in Arizona. So without further ado, I am pleased and so abundantly joyful to let this out and let this be heard. What happened to my client happened back in 2011 to 2013, and then 2015. So this is a story that has been building up for years. And now we are here. And this is my first ever documentary that I have put together wholesomely by myself. I have no fancy team, I have no media crew, I am the engineer, I am the audio guy, I am the producer, the editor, the masterer, I am everybody. So having this come out is very, very heartfelt to me, because where I was a year ago is not where I am today. And where I am today is not where I'm gonna be a year from now. I don't know where I'll be, but I know it's not going to be where I used to be. Never again am I ever going to where I used to be. So let's get ready for the story of Melania Hallonquist, when courage calls for hope. Y'all enjoy.
You get so much out of life, and when you get so much, that just means you have so much more to give. And Dr. Rogers gave me so much. She made sure that I got to the right place. And to have it all fall into place like it did, to have it be Tucson, Arizona, where she has an aunt and uncle who could be there to take me for my pre-ops, to give her mom a reason to go to Tucson to see her brother, to be there for me for a week. You know, I mean, family is family. And I feel that Dr. Rogers' family is part of my family. You know, and as I started to get more strength and started to get back on track, I had to give it to her in return. And she's not just a chiropractor. She's a friend. She sees things that doctors don't see. And she'll go out of her way to help whoever needs to be helped. And she takes pride in that. And she has done a lot for Conroe, for the community. She's on the board for the Texas Chiropractic Association, for the TCA, and you know, she goes against doctors all the time because doctors try to give chiropractors a bad name. When they left, after they were done talking to me, and they left, they were all lined up, single file, on the side of my bed. And they all turned and they walked one by one. They walked to the end of my bed, and every single one of them blessed themselves and walked out the door. And to me, that was more powerful than any medicine ever. And the doctors that I had at the University of Arizona are the best of the best as well. Dr. Grusner was my chief of surgeon. I saw him the day he did the surgery, and I saw him the day after my surgery, and I never saw him again. Dr. Relo was the one that did the transfusion from the islet cells from the pancreas into my liver. I saw him. I still talk to him. If I feel like I can't get answers from doctors here, I call him. The doctor from the ICU is the same doctor that saved Gabriella Gifford when she was shot in Tucson. Dr. Rana, he was my liver doctor, and he's now a liver transplant surgeon at downtown in Houston. So I do still see him. As far as I know, as Dr. Grusner may be in New York, but when I saw him, I was told that I was his last transplant patient, and he had a falling out with the dean at the university, and they accused him of all kinds of things. It ended up being not true, but again, they had already ruined his name, and which, you know, is just, it's all politics, and it should have never happened. I mean, he saved so many people. When I was there was an 18-month-old baby that had a liver transplant. He took part of the liver from the mother and put it in that baby, and as far as I know, that baby's still alive. Hello, my name is Melania Hallonquist, and today I am here to tell you about the story of going through the struggle of doctors and growing up with what turned out to be chronic pancreatitis. Hello, my name is Melania Hallonquist.
Welcome, Melania Hallonquist, to RZ Interview with RZ.
You know, I mean, I've been to other chiropractors. They broke my tailbone. You know, right away, he ordered a MRI because they thought maybe I might have a stricture in my bile duct. They asked me if they could untie me, my arms, so they could talk to me and I could write back to them that it's not your back and that you need to go have some testing done. He had tested me for every infection imaginable. We made up an excuse to get a CT scan done. And, you know, it's just, we can give you an antidepressant. You know, I mean, and I flat out told him, it's not depression, I'm not depressed. And as I got in bed, Dr. Rogers called me to see how I was doing. My husband at the time, and I told him, I said, look, you're gonna have to take me to the ER. No, we searched and searched and searched for doctors. Follow up, first thing he asked me was, well, did you try the antidepressants? And I said, no, until you try them, then you can't come back to my clinic. And I said, okay. And they were looking for a stricture in the common bile duct. And at Methodist over at Willowbrook, and you know, he told me that he takes the gallbladder out every day, all day long, but he wasn't skilled enough to take mine out. I was moved to ICU, and I was there for 12 days, 7 days in a coma, and intubated. As a child, growing up, I seemed to be always sick. You know, always had a lot of pain. A lot of times it had to do with what I ate. You know, I was car sick a lot. But now that we think about it, you know, maybe it wasn't car sickness. Maybe it was what I ate. You know, the sodas that we drank. You know, I guess I really don't know. You know, going through junior high, high school, trying to play sports, and always feeling like it was such a struggle. You know, volleyball would always start out really good. And, you know, because it was August when it started and it was always so hot, and we would practice outside, the heat would really get to me. And, you know, I always, even during the games, I was always so low on energy that, you know, maybe that had a lot to do with it. But, you know, nobody could ever really find the real answer. You know, I look back at pictures and you can see that I was always hunched over. My fists were always clenched. It was always just, the pain was always there. And, you know, when it would flare up, my mom would take me to the doctor, and they would want to do all these different tests. You know, I'd have to drink all this junk. You know, they would take all these x-rays and do all these different things, but they would never find anything. They would always tell me that it was just an ulcer, or, you know, I don't know. I don't know whatever they really said it was. But the one time that I do remember, I was 12 and we were building our new house. And we were staying in a pop-up camper, and it was during the summertime. And it was on a Saturday. We went to church, and during church, my neck started hurting and my back. And then when we went home, I just laid down and went to bed, got up in the middle of the night and just opened the door of the trailer and was throwing up. And it was towards the beginning of school because I was at home, and was just, my side hurt so bad I couldn't even hardly get off of the couch. And my mom took me to the doctor, and this time they told her that it was mono, but it wasn't kissing mono. It was mono that affected the liver. And again, this was when I was 12. So really, the only thing they had was X-ray and blood tests. So, they didn't really know. And as the years went on, I guess it became just an everyday way of life. And, I always had back pain. My back hurt for as long as I could ever remember. And when I moved to Texas and, was approaching my 40s, my daughter started working for Dr. Rogers. And she begged me and begged me and begged me to go see her. I've been to other chiropractors. Did they help me? Absolutely, they helped me. Was I scared? Yeah, I was always scared. I saw another chiropractor after my son was born, because when I delivered him, they broke my tailbone, and I needed chiropractic care to help me with that. And it's always been a part of me. I saw a chiropractor in my 20s. After I had my knee surgery, they shortened my knee about 1/4 of an inch or so. So, they inserted a heel piece in my shoe, because my hips were hurting. And that took the pain away from my hips. But again, my back was always hurting. And, as long as I can ever remember. And then when I finally did go see Dr. Rogers, I had been seeing her for about 6 months. And within those 6 months, I was stung by a scorpion. And then probably a month or 2 later, I had a steroid injection in my wrist, because my son and I were wrestling, and he pushed me back in the recliner, and I tried to catch myself, and it bent my wrist back. And they told me that I, probably tore some ligaments and cartilage and stuff in my wrist. So they wanted me to just do the steroid injection first to see if that would help. And that was done in December of 2010. And the scorpion, I think, was probably in August or September of 2010. And with all of that, I remember just feeling like I had the flu. And, I went to Dr. Rogers, and she and her associate doctor at the time, they were both working on me, just, trying to give me some relief. And, she finally just told me that it's not your back and that you need to go have some testing done. So we made up an excuse to get a CT scan done. And I went in, had the CT scan done, and got it back. And, you know, it was normal. So I gave it to her. She looked at it, and she asked me if I could take it to another radiologist. And I said, sure, you know, it's no problem. You know, I can take it. So I took it down and dropped it off, and she called me about a week later, and so did the primary care doctor. And the primary care doctor called me, and she told me right over the phone that it was that I had an enlarged pancreas with mesenteric lymph nodes. And with that, you know, the first thing you think of is cancer. And then, you know, Dr. Rogers called me right after that, and she said, can you come see me tonight? Sure. You know, I mean, I already knew what it was about. So I went to see her, and, you know, she told me that again, it was an enlarged pancreas with mesenteric lymph nodes, but we still don't know. And, you know, my primary care called Dr. Rogers and told her that, you know, she was stepping on her toes by talking to me about it. You know, she wanted all the glory in it. But, you know, I mean, she never really did anything for me other than, you know, give us what we needed as far as the CT scan. You know, and I went to her on my own, I doubt she would have done one. So after that, I was scheduled to see a GI doctor in the Woodlands, Dr. Kavapel. I went to him, and, you know, right away he ordered a MRI because they thought maybe I might have a stricture in my bile duct. So they ordered, you know, ordered the MRI. I went through the MRI, and then it was just, okay, you know, you got to go down to the Woodland, or downtown to Houston, to Memorial Hermann, and you need to have an ERCP done. And an ERCP is where they go in with the camera and they try to come back up, and they were looking for a stricture in the common bile duct. And, you know, when they did that, they apparently ended up cutting the pancreatic duct and perforating the small bowel. And I went home that night and went to bed. And as I got in bed, Dr. Rogers called me to see how I was doing. And I told her that my stomach hurt, but I was just going to go to bed. And she told me that you need to go to the emergency room, or you need to call the ambulance. And if you don't, I'm going to call the ambulance for you. So I went and told my husband at the time, and I told him, I said, look, you're going to have to take me to the ER. So we went to the ER, and I was admitted, and I spent 7 days in the hospital with acute pancreatitis. And then after that, I just could not recover from that. And, you know, I went to other doctors trying to find somebody to help me, but nobody wanted to give me an actual diagnosis. Nobody wanted to tell me that what they did was the fact that they cut the pancreatic duct and perforated the small bowel, looking for the common bile duct when it said on my MRI report that I didn't even have one, that I was 5% of the population that's born without a common bile duct. So Again, nobody read the report. So is that the same as when they read the first CT scan and told me that everything was normal? I guess I'll never know, but I just had to continue searching for a doctor to help me because I wasn't able to keep food down. I wasn't able to eat without being in more pain. I was losing weight. It was unbearable. And then, it was months later, we finally decided to maybe go to the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota to see if they could come up with some answers, some way to try to help me. And their response was, oh, well, we'll just give you some antidepressants and, we use it as a nerve blocker. So, that's really all we can do for you. And, to me, that was just a cop-out. Let's just put a Band-Aid on it. We're not going to fix it. There's no way you can fix it. So, I came back, went to see other doctors in Houston, went to a Dr. Shaib downtown Houston. They ran all their tests again, trying to figure something out. He told me that, it's just, we can give you an antidepressant. And I flat out told him, it's not depression, I'm not depressed. And he said, oh yeah, but we still use it for a nerve blocker. And I said, okay. And, I went home, went back to him for a follow-up. First thing he asked me was, well, did you try the antidepressants? And I said, no. And he said, well, until you try them, then you can't come back to my clinic. And I said, okay. And I left. We searched and searched and searched for doctors. And I saw multiple doctors. I saw a doctor in Conroe that I don't remember his name. He suggested that maybe I should have my gallbladder out. So I, went to a general surgeon, talked to him. He's like, oh yeah, we can take it out. It won't be any problem. And I told him, that I wanted to get another opinion. So I went to a doctor at Methodist over at Willowbrook. And, he told me that he takes the gallbladder out every day, all day long, but he wasn't skilled enough to take mine out. And that I should find a doctor that is and can fix everything else before they take it out. But again, he never told me why. And then I started seeing Dr. Fisher down at Methodist downtown. And, they ran all these tests on me. He did all kinds of tests on me. Never gave me a solution. The only information he gave me was, he would always say, it has something to do with your pancreas. And the pancreas, and I forget, and the beta cells. That's all he would ever tell me. And after almost 2 years with him, one day after seeing him, I finally just went home and I Googled pancreatitis and beta cells. And it brought up the very first one, number one, was Dr. Relo at the University of Arizona. And the next time I went to Dr. Fisher, I asked him if he would refer me to see Dr. Relo at the University of Arizona. And his response was, why would you want to go there? I mean, I told him, I'm looking for somebody to help me. If you can't help me, then I want someone that can. And he said, well, I can't refer you. Okay. So I went home, went right back to Dr. Relo online at the University of Arizona, referred myself. I filled out all their paperwork and submitted it. And a day or two later, they called me. And, you know, they asked me what was going on, and I told them. And they asked me if I had any imaging or any testing. Absolutely. I have a 3-inch binder full of every test and every procedure that I'd had done in almost the last 3 years. And they said, okay, can you send it to us? Absolutely. Sent it to them overnight, and they called me the next day and asked me if I could come out. Sure, you know, so they sent me my plane ticket, and they sent plane tickets to my mom and my sister to go with me. And we went out to Tucson, Arizona, and we were there Monday through Friday. They did nothing but testing on me. They did MRIs, and they were ready to send me home on Friday, but I had a reaction to some of their testing, so I had to stay an extra couple days before we could go back. I came back home, and they told me, after all that testing, they told me that I had acute pancreatitis, and they told me that the perforation to the small bowel was not just a perforation, that it was cut. And in almost 3 years, it was still inflamed. And then when I came back home, they called me the next week and asked me if I could find a surgeon not a surgeon or another doctor to put a feeding tube in. And there was not a doctor around that would touch me. So they flew me back to Arizona, and they put in a feeding tube. And that was done on Memorial Day. And they asked me if I could stay in Tucson. And at the time, my sister and brother-in-law had a timeshare at a resort in Tucson. And my sister was able to reserve that for me. And she said that she has 30 days with it. So I went in, and they put in a feeding tube, and we just kind of started the process. And I stayed at that resort by myself from Memorial Day until June 26th. And they called me and told me that they had a cancellation, and could I get all of my pre-op done, or do I even want to go forward? And, you know, I mean, of course I'm going to go forward. I mean, what do I have to lose? You know, it's a 50-50 chance. You know, that's what they tell me anyway. You know, I was told I had a 50-50 chance when I was a senior in high school, when I blew out my knee, of ever walking without a cane. I guess I overcame that and beat the odds on that one. So can I beat the odds on this one? You know, who knows? I weighed 85 pounds. was very malnourished. I had no idea if I could beat it. While I was in Tucson, Dr. Rogers also has an aunt and uncle that live in Tucson, and they were able to take me to all of my pre-op. You know, my husband at the time came back because my son was 15, and you know, he needed a parent at home. And again, this was during the summer, so he was home all the time. He wasn't in school. They helped me get to all my pre-op. They would come and pick me up from the resort and take me and wait for me. They went out of their way for me, and they didn't have to, but they did. And then June 26th, it was like, okay, you know, today is the day. Went in for the surgery. It was scheduled to start at 8:30 in the morning. You know, everything was good. I remember coming to after the surgery, and I asked my husband at the time, I said, "What time is it?" He said, "It's 8:30. And I remember being upset because it was like, "What, you mean they didn't even do it?" He's like, "No, it's 8:30 at night." And I said, "Oh, okay, makes more sense now." And you know, it was a 12-hour surgery. You know, they told me that everything went well, everything was good. They just had a lot of problems putting the islet cells into my liver, because what I had done was a total pancreatectomy with an auto islet cell transplant. And that is taking the pancreas out, taking the islet cells from the pancreas, and infusing them back into the liver. And, you know, I got up the next day, woke up, felt great. Best I'd felt in years. Got up, was walking around, everything was going good. I was eating, and everything was fine. And then about 6 days later, I got an abscess on my spleen, and they had to open me back up to take out my spleen. And when they took out my spleen, my lungs filled with fluid. So I was on oxygen. And, you know, it was very, very uncomfortable. That was the worst feeling ever. And, you know, I just begged them and begged them to take the oxygen away. It's really hard to have stuff over my face. And I just didn't like the way it felt. So about 2 days later, they decided that they could do a bedside lung aspiration. And that involves just lidocaine to your back. And they just take a long needle and insert it in between your ribs with a syringe, and they just pull it and suck all the fluid out. And I will tell you, that is the most painful procedure ever. I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. But I did it. And the next morning, I let them do the same thing to the next side. And then, you know, everything seemed to be really good. And at this time, my mom was there, and my aunt, and Dr. Rogers' mom, Cheryl, she was there the first 7 days. And then my mom and my aunt came in. And everything was going fine. I ran payroll, was still working. I worked while I was in the hospital. I worked while I was out in Arizona. I could still keep up with everything. I had run payroll, so it was probably July 14th or the 13th, somewhere around there. Everything for work was done. It was the next day, must have been like July 15th. I had been eating. I got up and went to the bathroom, and when I came out of the bathroom, I could not breathe. And the nurse was there, and I climbed back into bed, grabbed my phone, sent a text to my husband at the time, and said, I'm on oxygen again, call mom. And the last thing I remember is looking up and seeing my mom and my aunt walk out the door, and everything just started closing in and going black. And I was moved to ICU, and I was there for 12 days, 7 days in a coma, and intubated. And I don't, I think it was probably maybe a Wednesday or a Thursday when they put me in ICU. And, you know, it went for those 7 days. And when you're intubated, the longer you're intubated, the greater the risk of infection. You know, they wanted to see if they could take it out. And they finally decided on a Friday that they were gonna take the tube out just to see how I would do, to see if I could breathe on my own. And they took it out that morning, and by 3 o'clock that Friday afternoon, they called my sister and told her that they had to put the tube back in because I went into distress. And they told my sister that, you know, they had tested me for every infection imaginable, including every infection from the state of Arizona, and nothing would come back positive. They had no idea where all this fluid came from, and they don't know why. But they just told her that, you know, they were just gonna put the tube back in. They were gonna give me the weekend to rest, and by Monday morning, that somebody would have to make a decision. They were either gonna shut me off, or they were gonna have to put in a tracheotomy. I mean, it had to be so unbearable for my sister. You know, it had only been, I don't know, maybe a year since she'd lost her daughter. And to have to go through all of it again. But I don't know. I don't know how she found the strength. And then Monday morning came around, and I woke up. And the last thing I saw was my mom and my aunt walking out the door. And then I see my sister walking in the door. You know, and I could tell by the look on her face that that's not what she was expecting, was to see me awake. And when you are at a university hospital, there are multiple doctors, because it's like you have a doctor for every organ. So I had about 10 doctors at all times. And a lot of them, you know, yes, 3 or 4 of them are your main doctors, but the rest of them are like resident doctors, students in their clinicals or graduating or whatever. So when I woke up, it was right at 8 a.m. Monday morning, as they were making their rounds. And when they came in and they saw me awake, they were just as shocked as everybody else, because they weren't expecting it. And they told me that, you know, they weren't expecting it. You know, I was still intubated. They still had my arms tied down, so I couldn't pull the tube out. They asked me if they could untie my arms, so they could talk to me and I could write back to them. Yes, you know, of course. You know, they told me, you know, that they were going to leave the tube in a little bit longer, but they were going to try to take it out that afternoon. You know, they just explained to me that they were at a loss. You know, they really didn't know. They had their meeting Friday night with all the doctors and nurses, and, you know, the conversation about me was they didn't know. All they could do was pray. And I will tell you that that is the first hospital and the only hospital that I'd been in where faith was their top priority. It wasn't always about medicine. It was about faith. And the power of prayer and the power of faith is what gets you over the top. You know, I tell people when I tell my story that my mom has a direct line. And maybe it was her, maybe it was them, maybe it was, you know, who knows. I just know that my will to live was for my kids. I wanted to see my kids again. And when those doctors were standing there talking to me, you know, they didn't understand. They didn't know why. But they knew that I was strong to be able to overcome it. When they left, after they were done talking to me, and they left, they were all lined up, single file, on the side of my bed. And they all turned and they walked one by one. They walked to the end of my bed, and every single one of them blessed themselves and walked out the door. And to me, that was more powerful than any medicine. ever. And the doctors that I had at the University of Arizona are the best of the best as well. Dr. Grusner was my chief of surgeon. I saw him the day he did the surgery, and I saw him the day after my surgery, and I never saw him again. Dr. Relo was the one that did the transfusion from the islet cells from the pancreas into my liver. I saw him. I still talk to him. If I feel like I can't get answers from doctors here, I call him. The doctor from the ICU is the same doctor that saved Gabriella Gifford when she was shot in Tucson. Some of the other doctors, I don't remember their names. Dr. Rana, he was my liver doctor, and he's now a liver transplant surgeon at downtown in Houston. So I do still see him. As far as I know, as Dr. Grusner may be in New York, but when I saw him, I was told that I was his last transplant patient, and he had a falling out with the dean at the university, and they accused him of all kinds of things. It ended up being not true, but again, they had already ruined his name, and which, is just, it's all politics, and it should have never happened. I mean, he saved so many people. When I was there was an 18-month-old baby that had a liver transplant. He took part of the liver from the mother and put it in that baby, and as far as I know, that baby's still alive. After I was in the ICU, they moved me back up to the regular floor that I was on before I went into ICU. And they had also flown my husband at the time and my son out to see me. And when I went back up to that floor, and they took me back to the room, as soon as I got up there, all those nurses were still there, and they were all in disbelief because they really didn't think I would be coming back to that floor. I spent 42 days in the hospital, 42 straight days, and 51 total days. But I spent 101 days in Tucson. And those other 40 plus days, I had to stay at an apartment in Tucson so they could monitor me and help me learn to deal with being a diabetic. I had to be able to give myself insulin. I had to be able to check my glucose. And I had to be able to realize and understand what it's like to be a diabetic. And being a diabetic, it's a surgical diabetic because they removed my pancreas. Yes, my liver does produce some insulin now. I don't use near as much as I did when I left Arizona. I I know my body. I know when something's not right. And, you know, a lot of the endocrinologists, they want to just give me all this other medication. But, you know, sometimes you can find one and they agree with you. You know your own body. So it's been 12 years since I've had it done. And I feel like I'm doing really well. Some days are better than others. I don't dwell on it. You know, it's just, it is what it is. You know, I'm here for a reason. I don't know the full reason why I'm here. But I know that the faith from that hospital continues. I mean, I get that. You know, I had the best head nurse imaginable. You know, I still talk to her every now and then. I had a nutritionist. I had all kinds of doctors and nurses. They did tremendous things for me. If you knew me before I got sick, you knew I was sick. If you didn't know me, you would have no idea that anything ever happened to me. And then in 2015, I was having a lot of problems and kept getting sick. So I had to have a revision done. And when I left Arizona, I had to doctor in Dallas because that was the closest facility that had a critical care doctor, because I was still real critical when I left Arizona. And so in 2015, they did a revision, and I guess all they did was, I don't know, I guess it's like a Whipple procedure. I really don't even know. They had to put in a stent in my bile duct so that they built for me so the bile could flow more freely. They wanted to do that in Arizona, but I was so critical they didn't. They wanted to give me time to gain some weight and get some strength back, because they knew if they did it then that I probably wouldn't survive another one. So in 2015, I went in for the revision and the stent. And that surgery was only supposed to be a couple hours. It ended up being 4. They had complications. It was, again, 8:30 at night before it was completed. My husband at the time was there, and they took me back to my room and got me comfortable, and then he left. And I spent a week in Dallas by myself. Dr. Rogers had friends that lived in Dallas. She called them, you know, they would come visit me, but it wasn't the same. And then on Sunday, you know, they were talking about discharging me, but they were thinking they were going to wait until Monday, and I begged them to let me go out on Sunday. That way, you know, my husband could come get me and he wouldn't have to miss work, because work was always important to him. So, you know, I called him and told him, you know, that they were going to release me. And he was like, okay. So, you know, I had to wait the 3-hour drive for him, you know, which was fine. He got there. He walks into the room and he says, okay, let's go. Are you ready? And I said, well, yes, but I have to wait for them to bring me the papers, and they're going to bring me a wheelchair. And he said, oh, you can walk. So I walk out. We walk by the front desk, and they try to stop me. And I'm like, no, you know, he said that, you know, I can walk. I'm fine. We go down in the elevator, and this is in August. Walk outside. It's hot. There's benches, but the benches are all full with people. He sets my bags down on the curb and tells me that he has to go get his truck out of the garage. Okay, but I just had abdominal surgery. It's 100 some degrees out here, standing on the pavement in the sun. I can't move these bags. I can barely even walk, but okay. So about 10 minutes later, he comes back with his truck and picks up the bags, throws everything in the back. And I mentioned to him that I need my purse because it has my insulin in it. And he just throws it at me. And I get in the front seat and away we go. And as we get out of Dallas, I asked him, if we could stop so I could get a snack. And, told him that, there's one, and Dairy Queen was always my favorite. It was always okay, so I had to have a chocolate dip cone. That's the one thing I always cheated on. But and I told him, that I knew where it was at because I'd been to Dallas multiple times over the last 2 years since I've been back from Arizona to go to these doctors. And, he wouldn't stop. It was 2.5 hours into the drive, and he finally decided to stop. And by then, it was time for me to eat dinner. It was almost 6 o'clock. So, I don't know. We went through the drive-through, and for some reason it just took him forever, but all I ordered was a salad. And I don't know. And he was mad about it. And got home, and my daughter was living in the house right behind us, and she came over to the house, and I was on the couch. And she walked in, and she looked right at me, and she knew. And, she just sit and talk to me for a while. And Monday night, I went back over to her house because my incision was hurting. And I sent some pictures to the doctor. And he told me I needed to come back because he's pretty sure that it was an infection. So I told my daughter, I said, I'm going to have to go back. And she said, okay. She said, but I'm going to take you this time. And I said, okay. And it was on a Tuesday. And it was the week before school was to start. And my son was going to be a senior. And we headed back to Dallas, and I told the kids that on the way to Dallas, we'll stop and we'll do some school shopping. And we stopped at the mall, and the nurses were calling me, texting me, wanting to know where I was at because I needed to get back. But I also needed to spend time with my kids. And when I got to the hospital and they admitted me, the very first thing they did was pushed on my stomach, and my kids were right there. And yes, it was infected. And all of the pus come out. It was very, very painful. And to have your kids standing there watching that. But my kids have been through a lot. They've seen a lot, they've watched a lot. And of course, I had to stay. You know, they had to monitor me. So my kids went back home. But my kids also came back and got me. And on the way home, that night on the way home, I don't even remember how long I had to stay in the hospital. I'm sure it was 3 or 4 days. But they came back to get me. And on the way back is when I told my son that I was going to file for divorce. Because when I came back from Arizona, I felt like my condition, my illness, I felt like I had become an inconvenience to my husband. And he didn't deny it. And now my kids are the ones that take care of me, that take me to my doctor's appointments. They are always there when I'm sick. And I think I've raised my kids very well. And I've taught them to stand up for themselves and to never give up. And I never gave up. You know, I wasn't going to let this take me, because I still have a lot left. I have a lot more to do. You know, it's just, you get so much out of life, and when you get so much, that just means you have so much more to give. And Dr. Rogers gave me so much. She made sure that I got to the right place. And to have it all fall into place like it did, to have it be Tucson, Arizona, where she has an aunt and uncle who could be there to take me for my pre-ops, to give her mom a reason to go to Tucson to see her brother, to be there for me for a week. You know, I mean, family is family. And I feel that Dr. Rogers' family is part of my family. You know, and as I started to get more strength and started to get back on track, I had to give it to her in return. And she's not just a chiropractor. She's a friend. She sees things that doctors don't see. And she'll go out of her way to help whoever needs to be helped. And she takes pride in that. And she has done a lot for Conroe, for the community. She's on the board for the Texas Chiropractic Association, for the TCA, and you know, she goes against doctors all the time, because doctors try to give chiropractors a bad name, and that's not even fair. And to have to fight with the insurance on everything, you know, when this all started in 2013, insurance was really good. Today, I can't even get insurance through a private insurance because of my condition. Is that fair? No, it's not fair. Is it right? No, it's not right. But there's just really, what can we do? For me, I don't really know. I don't really know. I just know that that I beat the odds. I survived, and I'm doing the best I can.
Erase everything in my mind. Show me just how to find inspiration in all this devastation. Remind me how to see the light. Colors that seem to hide in the face of all this broken chaos.
All right, well, welcome Melania Hallonquist to RZ Interview with RZ. So today we are speaking with you on your situation that you had with your body growing up, and a situation that went with a whole bunch of medical doctors and procedures for your stomach, for your pancreas. If you could just give us a little information about who you are, what happened. So, do you have reason to believe that all the doctors were possibly milking you for money rather than searching for the actual problem?
Hi, I'm Dr. Stacy Rogers with Rogers Stein Chiropractic, and we just finished our ladies' night out.
You got a lot of stuff.
And then so why do y'all?
Oh yeah. Getting in there.
Does this go higher? Well, I believe. Let's add it. No. Yeah. And the cow. Gotta have the cow in there. And the cow are amazing. They're so. For some reason, it's hot, but not too hot.
Easy.
There you go.
Okay, so the first door prize goes to ticket number 809075. 809075. There we go. Here we go.
I know, I can't keep going in there. I can't.
We're at Nikki's Kitchen.
Okay.
We offer breakfast and a biscuit. Today with us we have spicy sausage, egg, and cheese, boudin, honey butter chicken biscuit, and then the berries are the strawberry or blackberry.
Oh my goodness.
Got it?
Okay. Okay. And so you just.
Here's something from Nikki's Kitchen. Here's her menu. Here's a little sample. It's a honey butter chicken biscuit. Let us know how it tastes. Can we start sending people over to get some drinks?
I think they tell them when they come in.
Oh, okay.
What can you say out of the time that you've been with Roger Stein? How have you seen the progression in yourself?
Amazing. I came here a year ago and I could not lift my left arm above right here and it could not go backward at all.
She's like, Mom, it's just let me get fit.
I like your dress.
Thanks. I had to go to school and observe today.
Hello, I am Yvonne. This is Brian. We are with Edward Jones. Been a patient of Dr. Rogers for a year and a half, and she helps me to do my job better and stand stronger. Dr. Rogers helps with fair pricing and helps to make it affordable so that we can go to chiropractic. She takes many of the insurance plans that are out there, and she really cares about patients and about the patients being stronger.
Hi, I'm Melissa McNeil and my designs are Melissa McNeil Designs. I have bookmarks and all kinds of freshies for your car. And I've been coming to Roger Stein Chiropractic for a long time. Like I'm patient number 200
Really?
out of thousands.
Okay.
So I've been here a while.
So what could you say out of the time that you've been with Roger Steins? How have you seen a progression in yourself?
Amazing. I came here a year ago and I could not lift my left arm above right here and it could not go backward at all.
Ooh, well,
And I'm
hey.
good.
All right.
So.
Awesome. Then
Sir, also
3,
all
2, 1.
So. Yes.
Hi, I'm Dr. Stacy Rogers with Roger Stein Chiropractic, and we just finished our Ladies Night Out. It's our annual event, and we will have the next annual Ladies Night Out, July 2026. It's always the third Tuesday of July, so we're looking forward to the event. We want to say thank you to all the vendors. They did a great job, and to All Star Catering for the fantastic catering that we have. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you next year.
Dark, disbelievers disregard. Heavy days carry all the way. Crack the surface, make a mark. Watch the cycle fall apart. Feel the weight slowly fade away. Come out of the darkness, step into the light. There's miles to climb to reach the other side. A spark in the moment, I'm bound to the blaze. Take a leap of faith, a chance to elevate. Rise with the changing tide, can't stop the hands of time. Rise from the chains that bind. Break free from the paradigm. Rise with the changing tide. Can't stop the hands of time. Rise from the chains that bind. Break free from the paradigm. It's all eyes on the prize. The only ones that learn to fly have a chance to ever touch the sky. Come out of the darkness, step into the light. There's miles to climb to reach the other side. A spark in the moment, I'm bound to the blaze. Take a leap of faith, a chance to elevate. Rise with the changing tide. Can't stop the hands of time. Rise from the chains that bind. Break free from the paradigm. Come out of the darkness. Step into the light. And rise with the changing tide. Can't stop the hands of time. Rise from the chains that bind. Break free from the paradigm. Break free from the paradigm. Lead the way to the world behind.
All right. Well, welcome, Melania Hallonquist, to RZ Interview with RZ. So today we are speaking with you on your situation that you had with your body growing up, and a situation that went with a whole bunch of medical doctors and procedures for your stomach, for your pancreas. If you could just give us a little information about who you are and what's the issue, what happened.
My name is Melania Hallonquist. I was born and raised in Wyoming. Growing up, I always had a lot of stomach issues, a lot of pain, and just learned to deal with it. And most situations growing up, that's usually what happens. You learn to deal with it. So that's what I did.
Okay. So where is the common bile duct, and how rare is it to have not have one?
The common bile duct is, I guess, connected to the gallbladder, the liver, and the pancreas. I mean, I know that it transports bile to help process and break down food. To be born without a common bile duct like me is 5% of the population. So it is very rare. But it's just, I guess when I was growing up, they didn't have the ability to, well, they didn't have CT scans, they didn't have MRIs, so it was just X-ray and symptoms. So I don't know, nobody could really figure it out.
How many doctors do you say that you went through?
Growing up, it was a few here and there, mainly because it was almost like no one really believed me that it was painful. Then once it was discovered, then I went through quite a few doctors. Mm-hmm. And it was, and to different places, different hospitals, different states, various clinics, just trying to find somebody to help me.
So do you have reason to believe that all the doctors were possibly milking you for money rather than searching for the actual problem?
Well, you know, I've tried to figure that out throughout the years. You know, it was, you know, growing up, I guess I really couldn't do anything about it, you know, because I wasn't an adult yet. And then, you know, when I moved to Texas, you know, it was still dealing with it. And, you know, I knew that things weren't quite right, because I'd have to, you know, constantly have candy with me, because I would have episodes of where I felt like I was going to pass out. And, you know, I went to doctors, and, you know, they would tell me that I just had a high metabolism. And, you know, there wasn't really anything they could do for that other than to eat more, you know, so, but it was like, if I would eat and eat too much or whatever, you know, then I would just have symptoms again of pain. When I did have pain, they would say that it was like a pulled muscle, or I had an ulcer, or it was just all these different things, other than trying to find the real reason. So, you know, I mean, I have no idea how many doctors. But again, once they finally discovered it, then yes, then I was just bounced around from doctor to doctor.
Yeah.
And that was because, you know, the procedure that they did without reading the report is what caused the remaining of it.
Yeah. So what information would you possibly might have for anyone who may be dealing with the same situation without knowing this could be the case?
Well, for me, it was the fact that I had a chiropractor at the time, and, you know, she knew what it was, but chiropractors can't diagnose. So all she could do was point me in the right direction and to keep me going and to keep pushing me to find that perfect doctor.
Who was this chiropractic doctor that
The chiropractor is Dr. Stacy Rogers in Conroe at Roger Stein Chiropractic Center. And, you know, it took her a matter of one day of putting her hands on me and knowing that I was losing weight and that there was something wrong.
So what was the first place that she sent you to?
The first place that she sent me to was just, she knew a doctor that I could get into as my primary care, because I didn't have one at the time. And, you know, we needed somebody that would see me, and we made up an excuse to get a CT scan done, because she knew that's what I needed. And, you know, to have that CT scan read the very first time, and have it come back as normal, she knew was not right. So she asked me to take it out to another chiropractor who is also a radiologist. And that's when he read it as an enlarged pancreas with mesenteric lymph nodes, which then, you know, led to an MRI, which gave them the true results.
So if anyone might be having the same issue, that's what you would suggest for them to go and do? And
Absolutely. I mean, the only thing you can do is find a doctor that'll give you a CT scan or a doctor that'll do an MRI. You know, you can't go by what they say, because not everybody is normal.
Right.
And, you know, I know that when doctors go through school, everything is out of a textbook. You know, they don't see, I guess, odd cases or rare cases as a student. You know, you see it once you are in hospital settings, and, you know, you have all these different people, all these different patients coming in that have rare cases.
Right. Okay. So what do you want to see come from this documentary?
I just want people to understand that, you know, not all doctors are what people say they are. You know, it's not because one is better than the other. It's because they care. And if you can find a doctor that cares and understands and listens, then you have a better chance. And for me, that was Dr. Rogers. She knew, and she stood by me. And she pushed me to get the care that I needed before it was too late.
Bless Dr. Rogers
Yeah,
for helping and guiding you into the right direction.
And I mean, I can vouch for her all day, every day.
That's good.
And she is the best of the best.
Yeah.
And you know,
That's good. That's
you
good
know,
to have
just because she's a chiropractor, she knows more than she lets on.
Right.
And she has helped a lot of people, including me.
That's good. Glad to hear that. So I got two more questions. Well, three more questions here. What was the most uncomfortable part within this whole journey, searching for the answers to your problems?
Just the most uncomfortable part was going through it over and over and over to different doctors and them not really understanding,
Right.
or even trying to help. That was the part that I didn't like. It was, it was like they would just brush it off,
Right.
like it was going to be no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, really, it was a big deal.
Yeah. So you felt more like they were neglecting.
Oh,
your
absolutely.
health.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. And after the ERC procedure that I had done, total neglect from every single one of them, except for the last one that I saw when they suggested that I have my gallbladder out.
And that was before still the
Arizona. Yes.
So that was Arizona.
No,
That was
it was before.
That was the last
Yes.
one. All right.
Yeah, and that doctor told me that he takes gallbladders out every day, all day long, but he wasn't skilled enough to remove mine.
So why do you think that you were hit with not having a common bioduct out of 8 billion people that are in the world? Why do you feel like you were granted to have this?
I mean, that's how it works. I mean, I've been told that I'm very strong. I'm Wyoming tough, and I guess that maybe God knew that it would take me to be able to help others. And there's more to my story than just this, but that's for another one.
We're the land of the free, we're the home of the brave. Freedom of speech, that's what they say. We're taking a stand, we're making demands. We're protecting the children, we got blood on our hands. This is irrelevant, but you keep rocking that shit for the hell of it. And you keep acting like you don't got skeletons up in your closet that you don't want dwelling in. They're pushing the narrative, aren't you proud to be an American? There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, bombs away, kiss it goodbye. Stay down or fall like the rest of them. One nation under oblivion. I don't want drama, but I'm gonna say what I wanna. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, bombs away, kiss it goodbye. Kiss it goodbye. Your pledge of allegiance into the unknown. Trust in your leaders, bow to the throne. Resistance is futile, comply if you can. Trust in your government, we got blood on our hands. This is irrelevant, but you keep rocking that shit for the hell of it. And you keep acting like you don't got skeletons up in your closet that you don't want dwelling in. I'm pushing the narrative, aren't you proud to be an American? There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, bombs away, kiss it goodbye. Stay down or fall like the rest of them. One nation under oblivion. I don't want drama, but I'm gonna say what I wanna. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, bombs away, kiss it goodbye. goodbye.